Ethan, a quiet high school janitor, had spent years unnoticed. Just another face in the hallways. But one night, he saw Jake, a struggling student, secretly stuffing leftover food into his backpack. Ethan's heart clenched. Without hesitation, he stepped in to help, never expecting anyone to find out. Days later, the entire school gasped as luxury cars pulled up outside. The principal's face went pale. Who were these people? And why were they asking for Ethan? What happened next left everyone frozen in shock. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Ethan had spent years walking the same hallways, mopping the same floors, and fixing the same flickering lights. No one really noticed him. He was just the janitor, the man who appeared when something broke and disappeared just as quickly. But that night, something changed. As he walked past the cafeteria, he saw Jake, a student he had often noticed sitting alone, hurriedly stuffing leftover food into his backpack. Ethan stopped in his tracks. Jake's hands trembled as he grabbed a few more pieces of bread and a carton of milk, glancing around nervously. The boy looked exhausted, his clothes slightly worn, his shoulders slumped. Ethan had seen desperation before. He recognized it instantly. He had felt it once in his own life, long before he took this job. Quietly, he stepped forward. "You hungry, kid?" Jake froze, his face turning pale. I was just..." Ethan raised a hand, stopping him. "It's okay. You don't have to explain." He glanced around to make sure no one was watching before lowering his voice. "You need food, right?" Jake hesitated before nodding. Ethan sighed. "Meet me behind the gym after school tomorrow." Jake stared at him, unsure whether to trust him, but something in Ethan's eyes told him he could. He gave a small nod before rushing away, gripping his backpack tightly. The next afternoon, Jake found Ethan waiting behind the gym with a paper bag in his hands. "Here," Ethan said, handing it over. "Sandwich, some fruit, a couple of snacks. Should last you a while." Jake took it, his hands shaking slightly. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan shrugged. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry." Jake's throat tightened, but he said nothing. He just held the bag close, like it was the most valuable thing he had. This became their routine. Every few days, Ethan would bring Jake food, leftovers from the cafeteria, snacks from his own paycheck. He never asked for anything in return. One day, Jake finally spoke. "You ever have someone help you like this?" Ethan exhaled slowly, staring at the ground. "Yeah, a long time ago." Jake wanted to ask more, but he could see Ethan was lost in a memory. He let it go. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan didn't think much of what he was doing. To him, it was just a small act of kindness. He never expected anyone to find out, but fate had other plans. One morning, just as Ethan was finishing up his shift, a voice called out over the school's intercom. "Ethan Parker, please report to the principal's office immediately." His heart skipped a beat. Had someone seen him? Was he about to get fired? As he walked toward the office, every student, every teacher, every staff member seemed to be staring at him. Whispers filled the halls. Something was happening and he had no idea what. Then just as he reached the principal's office, the sound of engines echoed from outside. Deep, powerful, unmistakable. Ethan turned. His breath caught in his throat. Outside, sleek, black luxury cars were pulling up in front of the school. One after another, their polished surfaces gleamed under the morning sun. People gasped. Students pressed against the windows. Even the teachers looked stunned. Ethan had no idea who they were, or why they were here, but the moment the doors opened, everything changed. Ethan stood frozen as the sleek black cars lined up in front of the school. Their deep engines rumbled softly before shutting off, leaving behind an eerie silence. Students whispered in hushed voices, pressing their faces against the windows. Teachers exchanged confused glances. No one had ever seen anything like this before. The doors of the first car swung open, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. He moved with quiet authority, his eyes scanning the crowd. A second man followed, just as well-dressed, adjusting his cufflinks. Then a third, this one holding a phone to his ear, speaking in a hushed but firm tone. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had no idea who they were, but every fiber of his being told him they were here for him. The principal, Mr. Calloway, stepped outside, his face tight with forced politeness. "Gentlemen, can I help you?" The first man, clearly the leader, nodded. "We're here for Ethan Parker." The crowd gasped. Eyes darted toward Ethan. Whispers grew louder. Ethan swallowed hard. His legs felt stiff, almost as if they weren't his own. Slowly, he stepped forward. "I'm Ethan." The man studied him for a moment, then extended a hand. "Mr. Parker, my name is Daniel Harrington. May we speak in private?" Ethan hesitated, glancing at Mr. Calloway. The principal nodded slightly, though he looked just as bewildered as everyone else. Without a word, Ethan followed the men back to their cars. The second he stepped inside, the air changed. The interior smelled of rich leather and expensive cologne. The seats were softer than anything he had ever sat on. The tinted windows made it impossible for anyone outside to see in. Daniel sat across from him, his expression unreadable. "You have no idea why we're here, do you?" Ethan shook his head. "None." Daniel leaned forward. "Do you remember a boy named Jake Miller?" Ethan's chest tightened. "Yeah, of course." Daniel nodded. "Jake is my nephew." Ethan's breath caught. He had never once considered who Jake's family might be. The kid never talked about them. Daniel continued. "Jake told us everything, how you helped him, how you made sure he had food, how you never asked for anything in return." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't a big deal." Daniel's eyes darkened. "To you, maybe not. But to Jake? You saved him." The weight of those words settled deep in Ethan's chest. He had never thought of it that way. Daniel reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a check. He placed it gently on the table between them. Ethan's eyes flickered down. The amount made his heart stop. It was more money than he had seen in his entire life. Daniel smiled slightly. "This is just the beginning." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His mind raced, trying to process what was happening. Daniel's voice softened. "We want to do something bigger, not just for Jake, but for kids like him. And we want you to be a part of it." Ethan blinked. "I'm just a janitor." Daniel shook his head. "Not anymore." The car door opened, letting in a rush of cool air. Ethan realized the ride had ended. They were parked in front of a massive building, its glass exterior reflecting the city skyline. Daniel gestured for him to step out. Ethan hesitated before finally moving. The second his feet hit the pavement, everything felt different. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was standing at the edge of something much, much bigger, and he had no idea what was coming next. Ethan's hands trembled as he stepped onto the sidewalk. The building before him was like nothing he had ever seen. Glass panels stretched high into the sky, reflecting the golden hue of the setting sun. The air smelled different here, crisp and expensive. He felt like an outsider in his janitor's uniform, but Daniel Harrington's steady presence beside him kept him moving forward. The glass doors slid open without a sound, revealing a sleek, modern lobby. Soft instrumental music played in the background, and the scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air. Ethan barely had time to take it all in before a woman in a navy blue suit approached. "Mr. Harrington," she greeted with a polite nod, then turned her sharp eyes to Ethan. "This must be him." Daniel smiled. "Yes, this is Ethan Parker." Ethan's stomach twisted. He still had no idea what was happening, why he was here, or what these powerful people wanted from him. The woman extended a hand. "I'm Claire. It's a pleasure to meet you." Ethan shook her hand hesitantly. Nice to meet you too." Claire turned briskly. "Right this way." They followed her through a corridor lined with large frame photographs. Ethan recognized a few faces, people he had only seen on TV or in magazines. Business moguls, philanthropists, billionaires. A heavy door swung open, revealing a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Ethan's throat went dry when he saw who was waiting inside. 5 men and women sat at a long glass table. Their clothes screamed wealth, tailored suits, gleaming watches, and confident postures that suggested they were used to making life-changing decisions. One of them, an older man with silver hair, leaned forward. "So you're the one who helped Jake?" Ethan nodded, suddenly feeling small under their gazes. A woman in a red blazer smiled. "Jake is like family to all of us. When we heard what you did, we knew we had to meet you. Daniel gestured for Ethan to sit. His legs felt like lead as he lowered himself into the chair. The silver-haired man spoke again. Tell us, Ethan, why did you help Jake? Ethan swallowed hard. Because he needed it. A pause. The air in the room was thick with something unspoken. The woman in red tilted her head. That's it? No expectation of anything in return? Ethan shook his head. I never expected anything. The room fell silent. Then Daniel cleared his throat. That is exactly why we are here. Ethan frowned. I don't understand. Daniel reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. He slid it across the table toward Ethan. This is a proposal. Ethan hesitated before opening it. His eyes widened as he scanned the pages. Words like scholarship, housing, and funding jumped out at him. He looked up, his heart pounding. The silver-haired man smiled. We want to fund a program in your name, Ethan, a foundation to help students like Jake, and we want you to lead it. Ethan's head spun. Lead it, Daniel nodded. You understand struggle better than anyone. You know what it's like to feel invisible. Who better to run this than you? Ethan's breath came in short bursts. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Claire spoke up. Of course, you'll be compensated well. A 6-figure salary, a home, full support. Ethan's fingers gripped the folder tightly. His whole life he had been scraping by, cleaning floors, fixing broken desks. Now they were offering him something he had never even dared to dream of. His voice came out hoarse. Why me? Daniel's expression softened. Because the world needs more people like you, Ethan, and we're not going to let you waste your potential. Ethan stared at the papers, his pulse roaring in his ears. This decision would change everything, and for the first time in his life, he had the power to choose his own future. Ethan's hands felt clammy against the smooth surface of the folder. His entire life, he had been on the outside looking in, always struggling to stay afloat, always wondering if things would ever change. And now, in this gleaming skyscraper surrounded by people who made decisions worth millions every day, they were offering him something beyond his wildest dreams. He hesitated, his throat dry. I don't know if I can do this. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes filled with quiet encouragement. Ethan, do you know how rare it is to find someone who does the right thing simply because it is right? People like you are the reason second chances exist. And now, it is time for yours. Ethan exhaled, his mind racing. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a leader. He was just a janitor who had done what he thought was right. Why were they putting so much faith in him? The silver-haired man clasped his hands together. Ethan, you are standing at a crossroads. If you walk away, we will respect that. But if you say yes, we are prepared to invest in you, not just financially, but in every way possible. Ethan stared at the contract in front of him. His name was printed in bold letters, as if it belonged there, as if he belonged here. A quiet voice interrupted his thoughts. Do you believe in second chances? Ethan turned to see Jake standing at the doorway, looking healthier than ever. His clothes were clean, his face full of life, and his eyes held something new. Hope. Ethan swallowed hard. Yes, I do, Jake smiled. Then take yours. Something in Ethan's chest cracked wide open. The fear, the doubt, the voice that had always told him he was not enough. It all began to fade. He reached for the pen. His fingers trembled as he signed the first letter of his name. The moment the ink met the paper, something shifted inside him. Moment the ink met the paper, something shifted inside him. He was no longer just a janitor. He was no longer just surviving. He was stepping into something bigger than himself. The room erupted into applause. Daniel clapped him on the back. Claire shook his hand with newfound respect. Jake grinned like he had just won the lottery. Ethan felt lightheaded, as if he had just taken his first breath in years. Welcome to your new life, Daniel said warmly. Ethan looked around the room. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. Ethan stepped out of the skyscraper, his mind still spinning. The weight of the signed contract in his hands felt surreal, almost as if it did not belong to him. Just a few days ago, He had been scrubbing floors, trying to make it through the day without being noticed. Now he was standing on the brink of something life-changing. The city buzzed around him, but all he could hear was the echo of Daniel's words. "This is your second chance, Ethan. Take it." His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. There was only one person he needed to call. "Mom," he said, his voice shaky. "Ethan?" Her voice was filled with concern. "Is everything okay?" He swallowed hard. I think my life just changed." There was silence on the other end, then a quiet inhale. "Tell me everything." Ethan took a deep breath and began. He told her about Jake, about how he had helped him, about the night he had given him the food. He told her about the luxury cars, the moment his entire world had tilted when he learned who Jake truly was. And then he told her about the offer. By the time he finished, his mother was crying. "Ethan, I always knew you had something special in you. I just wish the world had seen it sooner." He wiped his eyes, struggling to find the right words. "Mom, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know anything about running a foundation or managing something this big." She chuckled softly. "Do you think the people who change the world start out knowing how?" "No, Ethan. They just take the first step and figure it out along the way." The words sank deep into his heart. He turned and looked back at the massive building behind him. Just days ago, he would have never imagined being inside a place like this, let alone walking out of it with an opportunity that could change not just his life, but the lives of so many others. He thought about Jake, the broken, hungry boy he had met, and now standing tall, determined to give back. Maybe, just maybe, he was meant for this. His fingers tightened around the contract. Maybe it was time to stop doubting himself. Maybe it was time to take that first step. Ethan stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The bright lights blinded him for a moment, and as his eyes adjusted, he saw the crowd before him. Rows of people, some in expensive suits, others in casual attire, but all here for one reason: this moment, the launch of the foundation, his foundation. A week ago, he was a janitor, scrubbing floors in silence, unnoticed. Today, he was standing in front of hundreds of people, about to change lives. He gripped the sides of the podium, exhaling slowly. This was it, the moment that would define his future, the moment that would prove he had not been given this opportunity by mistake. He glanced at the front row and saw Jake sitting there, looking up at him with a smile. No longer the frightened, hungry boy Ethan had once helped. Beside him, Daniel nodded in encouragement, and next to him, his mother, her eyes shining with pride. Ethan cleared his throat and spoke. 2 weeks ago, I was a janitor at Westbrook High. I walked those halls, I cleaned up after students, and I saw more than most people ever do. I saw kids who were struggling, hiding their pain behind laughter, pretending they were okay when they were not. I saw students who needed help but were too afraid to ask for it, and I saw something else, something that changed everything for me. He paused, letting the silence sink in. I saw a boy, tired, hungry, afraid, a boy who had no one to turn to, a boy who reminded me of myself. The room was completely still. No one even shifted in their seats. I did not give him food that night because I wanted anything in return. I did it because I knew what it felt like to have nothing, and I knew deep down that if I walked away, I would regret it for the rest of my life. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. I never expected what happened next. I never expected that small act of kindness to change my life. But it did, and now I want to use this chance to change the lives of others. He turned slightly, gesturing to the massive screen behind him, where the logo of the foundation was displayed. This foundation is not just about providing food or shelter. It is about giving kids hope, about giving them someone to turn to, about making sure that no child ever has to feel as lost as Jake did that night. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Ethan felt his confidence growing, his voice stronger. I was a janitor, and now I am standing here because someone believed in me, because a single act of kindness opened a door I never knew existed, and I want to make sure that door stays open for every kid who needs it. The audience erupted into applause, but Ethan barely heard it. He looked at Jake again, seeing the boy's eyes filled with emotion. He had done it, not for himself, but for every lost, struggling kid out there who just needed someone to believe in them.